Go find a photograph. Any photograph of you as a child. It doesn't matter which one: birthday party, holiday, backyard, school. Find one and look at it. Not at yourself. At the background, the edges of the frame, the spaces behind the people you know, the doorways, the corners, the places where the light gets uncertain. Look carefully. Most of you won't find anything. Most photographs are exactly what they appear to be: a moment, a group of known people, ordinary light in an ordinary room. But some of you will find something. And if you do, if there is a face in the background that you can't place, a figure standing somewhere it has no business standing, a shape in a doorway that you have looked at 100 times and somehow never actually seen, I want you to check the other photographs. All of them. Because that's what I did. And what I found is the reason I'm still not sleeping properly 11 weeks after the night I first noticed. It started with a box. Not something I went looking for. I was helping my mother move, and there was a box of photographs in the back of a closet that hadn't been opened since before I left for college. Physical photographs, the kind that existed before everyone carried a camera. In their pocket, envelopes from the drugstore, dates stamped on the back. I sat down on the floor of that closet with the box and started going through them. The way you do when you haven't seen these images in years, looking at your own face at ages you don't remember being, recognizing relatives you haven't thought about in a decade, feeling the particular strangeness of a past that is fully documented but only partially retrievable. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just looking. The first photograph was from my 5th birthday. I know this because someone had written it on the back in blue ink, the handwriting of my grandmother, who has been dead for 7 years. In the photograph, a kitchen table, a cake with 5 candles, my mother on the left, my father behind her, 2 cousins, whose names I can still remember, on the right. I am in the center, mid-blow, cheeks puffed. I have seen this photograph before, many times. It used to be on the refrigerator. I looked at it almost every day for the first decade of my life. But I had never, in all those years of looking at it, looked at the doorway behind my father. There was someone standing in it. I want to be precise about what I mean because precision matters here. It wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't a trick of the light, or a coat hung on a hook, or a shadow that looked vaguely human if you tilted your head. It was a person, standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the hallway, partially in shadow, with enough of their face visible to confirm that they were an adult, that they were looking toward the table, and that I had absolutely no idea who they were. Not a family friend I'd forgotten. Not a neighbor who'd wandered in. Not a face I could almost place. A stranger in my parents' kitchen on my 5th birthday, standing in the background of a photograph I'd looked at hundreds of times without ever seeing them. My first instinct was the reasonable one. A delivery person who'd come to the door, a neighbor who'd stopped by, someone who belonged there for a perfectly ordinary reason and who I simply didn't know well enough to remember. I set the photograph aside and kept going through the box for about 4 photographs. And then I found the second one. Christmas. I'm 7. Living room, tree in the background, the carpet we had before my parents replaced it in 1998. My father is handing me a present. My mother is laughing at something off to the left of the frame. In the window behind the tree, behind the lights, in the dark glass where the outside looks in a reflection. Or not a reflection. A face at the window from outside. The same face. I went through the rest of the box differently after that. Not casually, methodically. Every photograph taken out, examined in the center first to note what was supposed to be there, who the subjects were, what the occasion was, and then examined at the edges, the doorways, the windows, the spaces between and behind people. The areas that a photographer never frames, but that the camera captures anyway. I found the figure in 9 more photographs. 9. Across 11 years of family images. Birthday parties and Christmases and a 4th of July barbecue and 2 school events and a photograph taken on a beach vacation in a state 500 miles from where we lived. Same figure, same adult, always at the margins. Always partially obscured in shadow, at a distance, behind glass, at the edge of the frame where the focus softens. Never close enough to identify with certainty. Always close enough to recognize. I want to walk you through what I ruled out, because this is important. The first explanation, the one I reached for immediately, was that it was the same person, a family friend or neighbor who appeared in the background of family events over the years, because that is simply where background people appear. The person who is always around, but never quite part of things. I called my mother that night. I described the figure, the build, the hair, the particular way they stood slightly back from whatever was happening, and I asked her if she knew who it was. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I sent her photographs, 3 of them, with the figure circled. She called me back 20 minutes later and said, and I am quoting this exactly because I wrote it down, "I don't know who that is. I don't remember anyone standing there." Was that always in this photo? So, not a known background person, not someone my mother could place. Second explanation, photographic artifact. Overexposed film, producing human-shaped shadows. A recurring visual glitch in the way a particular camera rendered dark areas. I am not a photographer, but I know how to look things up. I spent 3 days reading about film artifacts, exposure issues, darkroom processing errors, and the ways analog photography can produce shapes that look like faces or figures in low-light areas. What I found is that film artifacts are random. They don't repeat. They don't appear in the same location relative to the subjects across a decade of photographs taken by different cameras at different times of year in different states. A pattern is not an artifact. Third explanation, coincidence. Different people, different events, who happen to be in the background, who happen to have a similar build, who happen to be partially obscured in a similar way. I am going to tell you why that explanation collapsed. On the beach photograph, the one from the vacation 500 miles from home, a place my family had never been before and never went back to, the figure is visible, at the far left edge of the frame, standing on the beach, facing toward my family. I know the figure from the doorway photographs. The posture is identical. The build is identical. The particular angle of standing weight on the left foot, right shoulder, slightly dropped, is identical. 500 miles from home. A vacation that was booked 2 weeks before we went. A beach we chose at random from a highway sign. And the same figure standing at the edge of the frame, facing toward us. That was when I stopped looking for explanations and started looking for the face. I started with what I had. 11 photographs, 11 appearances of the same figure. 9 of them from my parents' house, the same town, close enough that a person who knew the family could plausibly appear. 1 from my grandmother's house, 40 minutes away. 1 from the beach. In 7 of the photographs, the figure is facing toward the subjects, toward my family, toward me, in the images where I'm visible. In 3 of them, the figure is partially turned away, but turned in a specific direction, toward a doorway, toward an exit, as if aware in those frames that something was about to change. In the sharpest photograph, the Christmas one, where the figure is visible in the window glass, I could make out enough of the face to try something. I described it to a forensic sketch artist. Not a professional engagement, a friend of a friend who did facial reconstruction work and who agreed to listen to my description and produce a rough composite informally over a video call. I described what I could see. The rough shape of the jaw, the way the eyes sat in the face, the specific proportions between the forehead and the rest of the features. The expression, and here the artist stopped me and asked me to be more precise, because expression is usually the least reliable element of a description. I said, not watching, waiting. There is a difference, visually, between a face that is watching something happen and a face that has already decided what is going to happen and is waiting for the moment to arrive. That is what I saw. The artist produced a composite. I looked at it for a long time. I recognized it. Not from the photographs, though. When I held the composite next to the clearest image I had, the alignment was exact. From somewhere else, from something I couldn't immediately locate. The specific unease of recognition, without context, knowing a face before you know where you know it from. I went through every photograph I had, not just the box from my mother's closet. Everything. My own apartment, my phone, photographs from college, from my 20s, from every period of my adult life that had been documented in images. It took me 4 days. I found the figure in 2 more photographs. One from a party I attended in my mid-20s, a crowded room, many faces I didn't know, and at the back, near the wall, partially behind another person, the figure, older. But the posture, the same. The particular angle, the expression I had learned to name as waiting. And one from 3 years ago, taken outside my current apartment building by a friend, documenting the day I moved in. Here is the door, here is the key, here is the beginning of wherever this is going. In the background, across the street, standing at the edge of the frame, watching the door, The figure in my childhood photographs had been at my moving-in day 3 years ago, waiting. I have not found the figure in any photographs taken since. I've checked. Methodically, the way I've checked everything, every image of myself, for the past 11 weeks, every photograph, from every occasion, every image where there is a background with any depth at all. Nothing. There are 2 ways to read that. The first, whatever was happening has stopped. The figure, whoever, whatever, is no longer present. The pattern has ended and the images going forward will be clean. The second, the figure has stopped appearing in the background of my photographs because the figure is no longer in the background. It has moved. I want to tell you something about the photographs I found the figure in. In every single one, every one, across 20 years, from my 5th birthday to my moving-in day, the figure is looking toward me. Not at the camera, not at the other people in the frame, at wherever I am in the image. Even in the photographs where I'm not visible. Even in the images where I was behind the camera when it was taken. The figure is oriented toward the position I was standing in, toward me. I've been thinking about what it means to be watched across the entire span of your documented life by something you never noticed was there. What it means that you could look at a photograph hundreds of times and not see the face at the edge of the frame. And I keep coming back to a question I can't answer. If it has been there since my 5th birthday, if it followed me 500 miles to a beach my family chose at random from a highway sign, if it was standing across the street on the day I moved into the apartment where I fall, I am sitting right now. Then what was it waiting for? And why has it stopped waiting?